for me, coming to a conference like this is so helpful because it allows you to take a step back, right? And think about the big picture. More often, I feel like the people in this picture, especially now in the moment that we're living in, whether it's waiting for the next Trump tweet or the alert from my New York Times app, I feel like I am totally on edge and totally fixated on the moment. When what I should be doing is thinking about the trends and turning points and milestones that are part of our past and present, and think about what they suggest for where we're headed for the future. Like the example that everyone likes to think about, the most obvious turning point is the financial crisis. 10 years ago, actually, at this point, 10 years ago this year, the housing market, the bubble burst, and we were starting to see huge problems in the subprime mortgage market. We may not have known a crisis was brewing yet, but it would come the following year. But I don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about something else that was happening at the same time, something equally momentous and important, but totally different. Go ahead and watch this.
3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone.
Show of hands, who stood in line on June 29th, 2007 to buy their first iPhone? Brett, I knew you were going to raise your hand, but there are a few others. So Steve Jobs actually introduced the iPhone 6 months earlier at this event I just showed you. And after he finished with the big reveal, he spent the next hour talking about all of the ways in which the iPhone was completely revolutionary and radically different and better than anything that had come before it. He talked about the touch screen and how you could take your index finger and your thumb and you could pinch them together to zoom in and out of an image. We couldn't do that more than 10 years ago. Hard to believe. He talked about getting rid of those pesky little keys on the keyboard that those of you who are still carting around BlackBerries have, and embedding that in the screen. He talked about being able to sync all of your songs from iTunes with a cord at the time. And he talked about the ability for this phone to run really powerful applications and a full-blown HTML web browser, just like you could do sitting at your own desktop. In fact, Steve Jobs called it a computer in your pocket. But I'm convinced that not even Jobs understood just how radically this device would change everything. It's changed our expectations. It's certainly changed our attention spans. It's changed our relationships. It's changed how we learn, how we shop, how we interact, and how we engage. It's kind of strange to be thinking about the financial crisis on the one hand and the iPhone on the other. 2 seemingly totally different events that happened around the same time. But I believe they're profoundly related. Because at around the same time that Americans gained a tool to help them access and manage their money, they had less money and more financial problems to manage. These 2 events really have changed everything. For those of us at CFSI, these two events sent shockwaves and really led us to question our own purpose. When I founded CFSI 13 years ago, it was to bank the un- and underbanked. But with the iPhone, we wondered if we were suddenly out of a job done. Because, a phone coupled with a prepaid debit card overnight creates near ubiquitous access to the system. Yet at the same time, the financial crisis was revealing just how financially fragile Americans were, the majority of Americans, drowning in debt, no savings to speak of, increasingly volatile incomes. And that was true whether or not they had a bank account. And moreover, it wasn't just that bank accounts weren't the only solution or the primary solution. It wasn't just about banks anymore either. And so we asked ourselves the most important question you can ask. Why? Why does CFSI exist? Why do we do the work that we do? And so as we grappled with trying to find the answer, we went back to where we always go. We started with the customer. And we started spending a lot of time in particular with the findings from financial diaries. You heard Rachel talk about that incredible study yesterday. The data was just coming back out of the field, and we started spending time trying to make sense of it. You heard Rachel say this yesterday, but it bears repeating. She talks about how when she sits down to talk about someone's financial life, what they end up talking about are just their lives. Because their finances and their lives are so dramatically intertwined in every possible way. And as that sunk in, it became clear to us that CFSI didn't exist for bank accounts. CFSI existed to improve the lives of people like Carol and Jim Shelton and their Sunday night budgeting, or Muyeed Sahar and his loneliness, or Sarah Johnson and her bankruptcy, and the millions of others like them. That by leveraging technology and finance and the power of markets, that we can help people build resilience and pursue opportunity with a strong day-to-day financial system. And we called that financial health. Now, over the last few years, CFSI has been on a financial health journey. First, we took a long, hard look at the financial health of Americans, and we found out that it wasn't very good, that over half of Americans were financially challenged in some way. And then we decided we needed to create some measures of financial health so that we knew what was moving the needle. So we talked about things like, are people paying their bills on time? Are they building a savings cushion? Are they managing their debt effectively? Are they planning for the future? And along the way, we brought together the most forward-thinking, the most innovative, the most important financial services companies in the industry, and began providing them with the data, advice, capital, and connections that they needed to begin building financial health businesses. Today, our network includes over 120 companies and organizations and is still growing. Raise your hand if you wouldn't mind, if you're part of our network, our financial health network. Excellent. Thank you. The network is still growing because increasingly, companies are realizing that financial health is the way to differentiate themselves from their competition while being responsive to the needs of their customers. We've been working with a small group of these members over the last year to pilot test our financial health framework. It's been an incredible learning experience for us and for them. I think the biggest takeaway from that pilot is best expressed by Creighton Blackwell from Coastal Federal Credit Union. When a company is making the shift from merely selling financial products to promoting financial health, it requires a shift in how the provider thinks about their own identity, about the business that they're in. It's not a one-time project. It's not an initiative or a campaign this year. It is a journey. And by watching the companies in our pilot group and working with them, we were able to distill this journey down into a 3-step process. It's about orienting your mission and your strategy with the needs of your customers, delivering a set of high-quality products and experiences that help promote financial health, and that enable continuous improvement as you learn from the experience. And the journey is girded by measurement and accountability, which creates a continuous feedback loop. Today, I want to introduce you to that journey and encourage you to join us on it. And if you're already on the journey, I'm going to encourage you to make more progress. But I think the best way to bring the journey to life is to share the story of one institution's journey, one of our network members. And so today, I want to introduce you to BECU. Boeing Employees Credit Union started in 1935 in Washington State. Back then, workers had to buy their own tools before they could go to work. And during the Great Depression, this became a huge problem. And so when William Dodge came across an article in Reader's Digest extolling the virtues of credit unions around the world, this Boeing employee thought, maybe I have the solution. So he brought together a small group of other employees, and they pooled their money, and they started a credit union designed essentially to loan money to workers to buy their tools. 80 years later, BECU has over 1 million members, and it's the 4th largest credit union in the country with over $16 billion in assets. And the credit union is still completely committed to the credit union philosophy of people helping people. When we met BECU and started talking with them about financial health and about our network, it immediately resonated with them because of this commitment to the customer. And they were already doing all kinds of interesting and innovative things. In fact, they were just finishing up a pilot with the behavioral economists at Ideas 42 around designing and delivering a new way to help their members build a regular savings habit. When they heard more about our framework, they invited us in to conduct a financial health checkup, to take a snapshot of the state of the financial health of both their members and their employees. Now, BECU is primarily does business in Seattle and the prosperous Puget Sound region. But the financial health of their members, frankly, was on par with that of the average American, regardless of where they live, which is to say, not great. And BECU has an incredibly high Net Promoter Score, right up there with Apple. But almost half of their members said that they were unsatisfied with their present financial condition. So in the wake of these results, Benson Porter, the CEO of BECU, invited me to join senior staff and the board of directors at their strategic planning retreat so we could spend more time diving deep into financial health and to review in detail the findings of the work. So I flew out to Seattle a few months ago, and from the second I joined them from dinner, it was obvious to me that this was a group of true believers. They are in it for their members. I have never been with credit union people who more frequently use the phrase people helping people constantly. And I've been around a lot of credit unions. It was really impressive. And as they heard more about financial health, they felt like, wow, this is the language and the framework that we've been looking for because it describes what we've been trying to do and haven't had the words to express. But when they then went back to their mission and vision statement, they realized that this deep commitment that they have might not actually be adequately reflected in the words on the page. BECU thinks about their competitive advantage as being about an excellent customer experience as defined by value, service, and trust. And that's how they hold themselves accountable. So they talk about the annual savings they provide their members of, I think last year it was $174 million because of BECU's lower fees and interest rates relative to the competition. They talk about their Net Promoter Score, which is in the 70s. The average Net Promoter Score in the financial services arena is half of that. And they talk about being recognized as the most trusted financial institution in the Puget Sound region. But if BECU is doing such an amazing job of delivering value, service, and trust, why is the financial health of their members still so challenged? BECU is really committed to trying to answer that question. They are the kind of institution that's always on a journey of continuous improvement, and this financial health framework gives them a new tool for thinking about how to orient their mission and strategy, how to design the right kinds of products and services, how to set the right key performance indicators. And they've already taken the next step on their journey. We're working with them to look at their current offerings and business practices and identify the gaps between their offerings and the needs of their members. There's a lot we can learn from the BECU experience, and I want to thank them for allowing me to share their story. We need more of you willing to share your stories because this is how we learn from each other. And at this point, there is still plenty of room for competition in this market. So the first takeaway is that the financial health journey isn't linear. In fact, when we first started talking to BECU, they, and we, frankly, thought they were firmly in the deliver phase, right? They had that great pilot going with Ideas 42, but it became clear in the conversation that there was some more work to do in Orient, and that's okay. You can get on this journey at any place. I think the other thing that became clear is that financial health isn't about a single product or a solution. It's about identifying the right outcomes and then developing key performance indicators that reflect those outcomes, and then working backwards from there to develop the kinds of products and experiences that are going to get the job done. And last, financial health is not just about semantics or language. It is nice language, and we're seeing it being used everywhere, which we're quite happy about. But it really reflects a paradigm shift in how you think about the business you're in. Financial health, ultimately, is another way, a different way, to answer the question, why? We want all of you to join us on this financial health journey. But I know what you're thinking. You're sitting there thinking, well, financial health and credit unions, duh. And certainly, given credit unions' historic mission, their philosophy around people helping people, we find that credit unions really gravitate to this. There are numerous credit unions at this conference this year, and we've done a lot of work with them. But we're seeing financial health take hold across the spectrum in companies large and small, banks and non-banks, incumbents and startups, for-profits and nonprofits. Let me share some examples. KeyBank is always my go-to. They've been at this the longest. And a couple of years ago, I remember standing up here and talking about the fact that they had just announced a partnership with Hello Wallet, where they were going to make available to their customers a financial wellness score and then advice to go along with it to help them improve. And now 2 years later, they've done it. They have 50,000 customers who have received a financial wellness score and are receiving customized advice. They also have a control group of customers so that they can really measure how impactful this tool is, how impactful this experience is. And based on the recent news that KeyBank's going to now buy Hello Wallet from Morningstar, it would look like they're doubling down on this strategy. NewDay is one of the leading credit card issuers for near-prime consumers in the UK. You didn't know we did business in the UK. And you'll notice on the bottom right of their homepage that they already have a manifesto, a set of a mission statement and values that describe their commitment to helping their customers do better with credit. But they had no idea whether it was working or whether their experience was even designed to live up to the manifesto. And so we're working with them to overlay the manifesto on their entire end-to-end customer experience, look for and identify gaps, and then to develop some key performance indicators so they can regularly monitor whether they're living up to their commitment. Axiom US Network is a group of nonprofit small business lenders in a few key cities around the country. Given what they do every day, they're extremely close to their borrowers. They know a lot about the pain points of those businesses, and they're regularly surveying them. But this year, the survey included a battery of financial health questions to measure the financial health of the business owner. Because the hypothesis is that, particularly with businesses this small, the financial health of the owner personally and the financial health of the business have got to be closely intertwined. So Axiom is going to have some really unique data to start assessing that on their journey of continuous improvement. InvestNet Yodlee is thinking about how to use financial health to increase engagement among the customers of their bank partners. We tend to think of Yodlee as a data aggregator, and they are, but they also offer a whole set of essentially financial management apps and tools that they make available white label to financial providers. And we've been working with them to take our financial health indicators and develop measurement methodologies using Yodlee's data. And they've now embedded those measurements and some advice into these tools. So this is brand new. And I happen to know that they are looking for some first movers who want to start trying these tools out. So if you're interested, I would encourage you to find the Yodlee folks who are at this conference. So now it's your turn. I told you why I'm here. Why are you here? Why does your company exist? Why do you do the things that you do? Well, if increased shareholder value is your knee-jerk reaction, you're probably at the wrong conference. I'm going to read this to you because it's small print, and I know some of you won't be able to see it. It says, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. Now listen, shareholder value matters a lot. Making money matters. We're not at all suggesting that financial health and shareholder value are somehow in conflict. If done right, they should be deeply intertwined. Because financial health is about making money by helping your customers build resilience and pursue opportunity. We want all of you on this journey with us. If financial health sounds like the answer to why for your institution, I'd invite you to consider joining our network. If you're already a member of our network, talk to your relationship manager about how you can take the next step on your journey. Or visit our website, where we have tremendous amount of research and tools and data. Or look for our consultants at the booth in the attendee lounge and come talk to us about how we might be able to partner together. If you're already taking action, I would encourage you to think about becoming a financial health leader. We launched this program just a few months ago, and it's meant to honor those companies that are taking the first step on their financial health journey by measuring the financial health of their customers. Now, I know I said earlier that you can start the journey anywhere, and you can, but we decided to start with Orient because from our experience with the financial diaries, it's so critical to have that deep customer insight when you're thinking about making a paradigm shift, a shift in your business. It can be an incredibly powerful impetus. So far, 18 companies have decided to join in this program, and in your magazine you can read more about them. And if this is at all of interest to you, please go to our website to read more or find any of the CFSI staff around the conference, and we'd be happy to talk more about it. This is like rolling admissions, so we want all of you. A good friend of mine recently came back from a business trip, and he was telling me about how he found himself with some extra time in the morning, and so he decided to find a yoga class he could take. It turned out there was a yoga studio just down the street, and he got there and found this great instructor, and it was just a great class, a great way to start his morning. But the thing that he was most struck by was what the yoga instructor said at the end of the class. She asked, "What are the 2 most important days in your life?" And when no one answered, she said, "The first is the day you're born, and the second is the day you figure out why." Now, obviously, his yoga instructor did not come up with that. In fact, it's been ascribed to many different people, including Mark Twain. But regardless of who said it, the question still stands. Why? I'm clear about why CFSI is here. As you spend the next couple of days listening to our fabulous roster of speakers and interacting with colleagues old and new and seeking out new ideas and inspiration, I want you to keep that question front of mind. And I hope by the end of the conference, financial health is the answer to why for you too. Thanks very much.